He wouldn't let me turn it off.
$6.66.
Oh my God. Hey, what's happening, everybody? Good to see you for a Thursday night live. Excuse me. Got my friend Lee here from Devil's Advocates. What's going on, Lee?
It's a crazy day. I've already had one
Wow.
lot, and there's still I couldn't talk about everything that's going on
Oh
today.
man, we could do an all-nighter and probably just scratch the
Right?
surface, right?
Yeah,
It's
for sure.
crazy.
I don't know why everything has to stack up and go at the same exact time.
Of
It's
course.
and it usually happens right before I'm going to go live. Hey, did you hear something that you should talk about this? I'm like, you just told me about it 15 minutes ago. I can't possibly be ready to talk about that.
Yeah, and I was my wife brought the dog to the vet. We had a little drama with him today, and he's okay, but he's definitely suffering a little bit.
Oh,
And he's an older dog, and he's a rescue, so he's had problems, but he's doing better. And he's sitting here at my side. He's always protecting me since I've got home from the hospital with the amputation. It's kind of
and now
interesting.
you got to protect him because he's on the down low.
That's right. That's right. And
Yeah.
so we were dealing with that, and I'm watching. I was sitting in the car, and I'm on my phone, and I just checked out YouTube to see what was going on because I hadn't been on it really all day. And I saw you live. I'm like, okay, let's see what Lou's got going on. And that was pretty funny, but that was cool. That's what makes the YouTube thing such a cool thing. Is you could be, sitting there at the doctor's office just killing some time, and you could put it on and put the subtitles on and sit there and watch stuff, and
I've done a number to my channel, by the way. So I even tonight when I tried to go live with you and simulcast this to my group, it told me I couldn't do so because I broke my account last night, and I'm trying to get it reclustered. I think I am streaming to my account now, but it's not on the one that I scheduled, and it's just kind of like hey, Lee just went live. So, but anyways, we'll get it all figured out. I just I had a hiccup on the road since last night when I tried to screw some stuff on my account.
yeah, that'll happen, I guess. And I was out and about with the wife. I had to go to a doctor's appointment, and on my way home, I see that the gag order was lifted, and kind of.
Kind of,
And
yeah.
I thought of all the nights, that Lee and I planned to do an all Gilgo Beach,
Right.
Long Island serial killer episode. This
And then
bomb
yeah,
drops about, but it really is nothing. I mean, it's
yeah.
right now at least. We'll see what they release and all that. But I know we're going to have some hardcore, Idaho 4 viewers that really, really love that case. And it's not that you and I don't. It's just that we know that the time is to at least diversify a little bit and not put all our eggs in that basket because here soon it's going to be pretty dry and there won't be much to talk
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
So, but
I think it'll be a thing for a while, as the unsealed documents, it's going to be a thing for a while because again,
oh yeah,
I mean, if they unseal documents and everything becomes more clear what happened, then it'll just die. But if they unseal documents and it just leads to more questions, then it's not going to die.
yeah. So, Voice of Astrology here, who's a frequent flyer here in the Murder Metal Mayhem chat boards, um, asks what's the dog's name. God bless you for rescuing. Hope you're feeling great. His name is Pee Wee. He is a 8 pounds or so Chihuahua with tons of attitude. So he is. It's kind of funny that as big as I am and as little as he is, it's kind of like the odd couple for sure. But no, that's his name, Pee Wee.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'm glad he's doing better. I don't like to hear that he might be suffering a little bit, but I'm glad that he's doing better. That's
Well, I know he was coughing, and I had people in my live saying, "It sounds like your dog's got a cough." I'm like, "Oh, I'm well aware of that."
yeah.
But good to see some familiar faces here. Donna Lembo, um,
Yeah,
Voice of
and I got some of
Astrology.
my mods in here as well. You know.
Excellent. Carl Thomas. And we kind of expected that this was going to be a smaller group because we are doing a case that is different than what we are typically talking about. But man, oh man, is this case just wild, you know? But
Yeah.
before we get to that, I want to make sure everybody hits that like button. Subscribe if you're not a subscriber. If you are not a subscriber to Lee's channel, then go check out Devil's Advocates 2024. He's got some good content, and that's why he and I have been doing some lives together, and it's a lot of fun to collaborate when we're used to doing stuff solo. So it's
See, Amanda was asking, are you on X? I haven't started to post anything on X. I'm thinking about it, so but I'm not sure. Have you done anything with X or not?
I have an account
Yeah,
that I've used, but it's one of those things where I can only do so many things, right? It's like,
right, right.
where do you draw the line? Like, people are talking about TikTok.
Yeah,
I'm definitely considering doing the YouTube Shorts,
yeah,
but I don't know if I have a TikTok. I just don't know if I have it in me to be on like six different platforms going wall to wall with it, just because I do have other things I enjoy doing. So I do love to do this, but I got a book to write. I've just started writing the book, and so that'll take some time. And writing a novel is definitely a long haul. This is different because it's nonfiction about my story this past year with all the medical stuff. So, but I dodged a bullet on Monday. I know some people were wondering. I posted it in my community tab that thought that there may be an unforeseen surgery needed, like urgently. That would have definitely set me back, but thankfully the tests came out good, and everything is fine. So I'm definitely relieved of that, because
yeah.
I don't know how much more of that crap I could stand. That's for sure.
And
But yeah, so I'm feeling good, and I know that we were both excited to talk about something different with the Gilgo Beach. I know it's the Long Island serial killer, and now we've got even beyond Long Island. I'll read that later. An email that came in from Just a Girl, one of our supporters here, and she sent me an article, an AI article, but it was about all these bodies turning up. So it could be a case. I know you were putting it out in a video I watched on your channel of hundreds of victims. I mean, some of these drifter killers,
yeah,
you got crazy high numbers because they're all over the place. And this guy, he had money. He did some traveling, and it
yep.
looks like maybe he was, having a little bit too much fun.
And during my stream, there were people that were saying, "Hey, did you hear the 195 highway killer might be Rex Heuermann?" And the different they were listing off other
Yeah,
unsolved serial killer cases that could actually be Heuermann's work as well. So,
right.
I think it's going to be a huge story next year. It was huge for a while when it first started. It kind of died out, and now it's going to slowly start building momentum again, and it's going to be big, I think.
Yeah. Cheryl Fitzgerald said, Pete, love the shirt tonight. Oh
Yeah,
yeah, I had to wear it based on the topic we were doing,
yeah.
and I've worn this to appearances before, book signings, and I get more people that come over and say, "Man, where'd you get that shirt?" Because I grew up watching that stuff. We're going to get into some of that, but I don't
Wasn't one of the, what
anticipate any trouble here tonight. So let's keep.
wasn't one of the first Faces of Death ones where the guy had basically gotten severed in half by the subway train, and they had to like bring the family in to talk to him before, because once they let the train free, he was going to bleed to death. Was that one of the Faces of Death ones?
That
Or
sounds familiar, but I'm not
yeah,
sure. I
yeah.
just remember the monkey
Yeah,
in the
I can't
middle.
forget the monkey. Being an animal lover, I can't handle that shit.
The monkey was bad.
Oh God, it was.
Yeah,
I
it
think I
was
got more
horrible.
nightmares than Friday the 13th.
I know, I know. So we'll get into that, but we covered this in the podcast one time. We got a lot of laughs, but yeah, good to see people in here, and so basically want to get into this case. And I know that this is our first live specifically for the Long Island serial killer. But what did you want to say about maybe like a thumbnail sketch, if you will, Lee, of the case for people here that are new, that are not familiar with it at all, that are just kind of learning. I did a primer video that I called a primer just to kind of get people's feet wet on it, but not everybody watched it, I'm sure. But what did you do? You want to say anything about that?
Well, I mean, I'm trying to ramp up new videos on it because, like you said, I mean, I want to kind of diversify our channel a little bit, and I think there's going to be a lot of interest in the case. Um, a lot of people know the basics. When Shannon Gilbert went missing, she called 911, was saying that somebody was trying to kill her. Police just didn't respond in a timely fashion. She went missing. It took forever to find her, but in the process of trying to find Shannon Gilbert, they found 4 bodies initially called the Gilgo 4, which started to point out that there was maybe a serial killer had dumped a bunch of people in burlap bags alongside on Gilgo Beach on Long Island. It has now spread, as many people know, further along Long Island, and now they're kind of calling him the Lisk, which is the Long Island serial killer, because his bodies go beyond just the Gilgo Beach area.
Yeah.
And lately, as I've been digging into the story, what's been intriguing me the most is a figure by the name of John Ray, an attorney for Shannon Gilbert's family. So John Ray has been digging up all kinds of crazy shit about Rex Heuermann's involvement with the police department back from even the 90s, that he was going to sex parties, that he's had a sex worker that came on that said that she had met Rex Heuermann at a party with a police officer that was there, that they were doing drugs when she was underage, and that it was a common thing. John Ray also exposed that the family were swingers and had people over to their house and did sex parties, and that one of the victims got away from Rex Heuermann there. Just crazy stuff that almost was like, is this guy for real? Like, but yet he was going on TV, John Ray, with like the district attorney who was giving clout to behind it, and other people who are like saying this guy's legit, and he's been on a lot of media. So I've been following his latest thing. The most recent video that I did, and I think you saw it maybe, was the one where John Ray basically showed all of the artwork that Victoria Heuermann had done, his daughter. I can't remember what her age is. Is she in her 20s or 30s? I think
She
she's
was 27 in one of the videos I watched.
yeah. So I think
She was
she's in her late
27,
20s. Yeah, maybe.
which rang a bell with the Koberger
Right.
stuff.
Right.
There's so many weird similarities in these cases, Lee. But one thing,
Yeah.
when I was watching, I think it was your video about the hairs getting into the tape,
Yeah.
and it's like that's transfer evident. That's exactly why the Koberger stuff
Yeah.
is so bogus, because he could have grabbed a roll of duct tape out of the junk drawer in the house,
Yeah.
and it would have had all sorts of stuff stuck to it, right? And
Well, and
people have
that's just
long
it. I mean,
hair; it goes
and
everywhere.
that's just it. Like, several of the victims, and it's interesting because this, again, I think I question everything, right? So the district attorney, I think his name is Tierney, he basically stated, hey, look, we linked Rex Heuermann to several of the 11 bodies because Rex Heuermann's daughter's hair was found at the crime scene, or Rex Heuermann's wife Asa was found at the crime scene. And they say, we don't believe that they were involved in the killings, that Rex Heuermann used objects from his house like duct tape or whatever that happened to be in contact with his own family's stuff, and they got transferred. However, you look at what John Ray is saying, and he brings out the whole thing with Victoria's artwork, and he's like, are you sure that Victoria wasn't involved? And I know a lot of people get really heebie-jeebie about that. They're like, well,
Yeah,
his wife and his daughter are victims in this thing. They didn't know what was going on. But that's
maybe.
what this attorney is saying is, are you sure they didn't know what's going on? For 30 years, this has been going on in their small little house, and you don't think they knew what was going on? Like,
Right.
how far do you want to go down that rabbit hole? So I'm super excited to dig into that myself.
Yeah, yeah. Donna Lembo, she says the primer was a good start for her. So I did get some people that thanked me for doing that, even though the views for it were abysmal compared to my Idaho 4 stuff. So you guys we knew this was going to be a small group tonight, and we're hoping it grows. But I'm not planning on letting go of this case. I think there's a lot of potential here, and I think that you guys that are true crime fans will really, really enjoy following along with it because it is crazy. But so it started with the four,
Yeah,
and was that when they arrested Rex? Was after they found the four, or
it
when was
was
he?
it was a while later, I think, and yeah, that's the thing. I'm kind of coming up to speed with this with the thing myself, but I know that it took
Right,
them quite a while to find Shannon, right? And they found lots of bodies before they really found Shannon. And I want to say the Rex was still on the loose for quite a while after the four. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, yes, he was on the loose for quite a while because there was a task force assembled to look for the killer of the Gilgo Four, and
right,
that was during the time when there was an outgoing chief of police,
yes,
Dorner. I think it was Dorner. He was outgoing, and then in comes Chief Burke, James Burke. And the first thing Burke did was essentially dismantle the task force looking into Gilgo Beach murder. Now it comes out again because of attorneys like John Ray, where he's like, "Well, James Burke is a dirty cop who's been hooking up with hookers, prostitutes, and doing
right,
drugs with them. I've got somebody who said that she's had sex with this guy, before. And so, how did he get promoted and then dismantle the task force looking into Rex Heuermann? And then
right.
later on, he keeps digging, and he's like, it's possible that these guys knew each other and that they ran in the same circles. So then you have to ask yourself, was he covering up for somebody that he knew was a killer? Or
Right.
yeah, even in Gone Girls on Netflix, they even kind of almost hinted that James Burke, the chief of police himself, might have killed one of the girls. That he liked to choke girls out. Shannon Gilbert was found with broken bones in her neck, indicating that she had been choked. And they didn't say it, but they led you down that line. He liked to choke girls. That
Yeah.
we got somebody who survived a choking thing with them. Shannon Gilbert died from choking. How do we know the police that are not wanting to find a killer didn't kill some of them themselves? And that sounds so nuts. But
I
could it?
know, but just like in Idaho 4, people thought it was crazy when we started bringing up what about Brett Payne and some of these cops. And here we go again. I mean, Delphi was a train wreck when it comes to the police.
Mhm.
Idaho 4 was a train wreck with the police. And now here we go again. Other side of the country, Gilgo Beach, Long Island, New York. And we've got another mess on our hands with cops doing stuff they know damn well they shouldn't be doing. I mean, this Burke was out of control. There was an incident with he had porn in his car and sex toys, and somebody broke into his car
Yeah,
and stole the porn and the sex toys, which is
yeah, and,
kind of weird. And then he
and
goes and puts a hit on him, right?
yeah, well,
Before
yeah,
he gets beat up in jail.
he beat him up in jail. He threatened to kill his mom. The chief of police threatened to kill this guy's mom. Threatened to give him a hot shot, which means they're going to overdose him on drugs and say, "Look, he's a junkie. He died. Who gives a shit?" Literally threatened to
Jeez.
do that. He was sued for that and went to jail. I mean, he went to jail for that. And that was a couple of years after that whole thing. Chris Loeb, I think, is the guy that he beat up and went to jail for. Chris Loeb's later came out and said, by the way, the video that he had in his car was a snuff film. There was a woman
Oh,
literally
that's right.
on video, and it hasn't been verified. But again, you have to ask yourself how connected are.
Yeah. Wow. That's
Which is why I did a
wild.
video like I did a video. Are snuff films real? Is that a real thing? Because if you remember, there's that movie 8mm with Nicolas Cage, right?
Right.
Do you remember that movie?
Oh,
And the
yeah.
And the whole premise of that movie, all the way through, they kept repeating the tagline. Well, snuff films aren't a real thing. It's just a myth. It doesn't really exist. And of course, in the show, you find out that there's a whole industry that does snuff films. So the question is it really a myth? Because it's always portrayed as an urban legend. Nobody really does that. That's just, it
Right.
sounds like something that's believable, but nobody really does it. But there are lots of people who say, no, the snuff industry is a real industry. People do murder people for entertainment purposes, you know.
Yeah, it's messed up. Definitely messed up, but what a crazy story. And I remember when I first started digging into this, and a lot of this stuff I had heard of, but it just got buried under all the Idaho 4. But when I started looking at it again and saw all this nonsense with Burke and stuff, the first thing I thought of was you, because I know that your wheelhouse is the police corruption stuff and
It
the
is. It is.
injustice, and I'm like, man, if there was ever a case for Lee to just descend upon, it's
Yeah,
this one, because man, there's so much of it, and that's just one guy. We're
yeah.
not talking about the overwhelming, what we've heard about the overall feeling on these police forces is that, well, they're just prostitutes.
Yeah,
They don't
and
really care.
that was Chief Fry. Chief Fry had officers who said his attitude was, "Who cares? They're just prostitutes." Um, unofficially, one of his officers, fellow officers, said that they saw in the department them watching a snuff film in the department, and he was laughing about it like he thought it was funny. So you just have to, and then. And I can't believe this. I can't remember the guy's name. I wish I did. But just recently, there was another story. A police officer in Suffolk County, a new story about a guy that's been caught running a brothel with a school teacher, of all things, and they're running prostitutes, and they got a whole thing where they take prostitutes that aren't native English speaking, and they basically coerce them into taking rent that they can't afford to pay, and literally then using that as leverage to get them to perform sex acts for them in exchange for paying their rent.
Wow.
And that's in the news right now, and that might even be related to Suffolk County, to the police officers that just don't give a shit about sex workers and think that they're just trash to be used and make money off of.
Wow.
So I don't know. Is that crazy? I don't know.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, these are people we trust, right? And they do this kind of stuff, and it's awful. But for those of you that don't know, Long Island is basically made up of, small towns like anywhere else, but you got Suffolk and Nassau County side by side. Most of the bodies were in Nassau County, but there was some in Suffolk County as well. So pretty interesting. You start involving different police departments, different, you know, um, mayors, and all the different people that get involved in these high profile cases, making statements to the public. And it's a total mess. But I mean, Hewerman was arrested. I mean, they wind up, I'm not sure offhand what the first. Oh, the tip was the car or the truck that he drove. Somebody had identified the
Yeah.
Chevy Avalanche. It was the first generation that had a distinctive piece on the back of it,
Yeah.
like on the body, and it was very distinctive. And the witness reported that, and then that's how they ended up, just good old school police work, beating the streets.
That and they had a bunch of cell phone stuff. He was using burner phones to make calls, and they had gotten to the point where
Right.
before the FBI was kicked off the case, because the Burt came in and tried to dismantle the help that the FBI was doing, but the FBI was starting to track that whoever was killing these women was using a phone in Massapequa area, and then also using it in downtown Manhattan. And so they started to theorize whoever it is may live in Massapequa area of Long Island,
Right.
commuting to Manhattan to do his job. And that helped them try to narrow down narrow the list of suspects. Who do we have that lives in this area, also
It
works
works.
in Manhattan, and drives a car that looks like this? All of these things lead them to Rex.
Yeah. It's really amazing, but that you're right about the commute to New York City, which would be common for anybody living over there, of places to, where people live in the nice, suburbs, but they're working in the city.
I wanted to answer one of your users. They said, "Where's Rex being held?" I happen to know this answer because on my channel, I actually write a letter every single week to Rex Hewerman. And I know that sounds sick and twisted, but I'm trying to get to know the people behind the news story. If he ever writes back, we'll see. But here is where he's at. He is at the Suffolk County Correctional Facility in Riverhead, New York. So I'm pretty sure that I've confirmed that's where Rex Hewerman's being kept.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't think, I mean, that there's anything wrong with writing to these guys like you. I wrote to Brian Koberger. I also wrote to Richard Allen. Never heard back from either, but
Yeah.
it was just kind of a shot in the dark. I thought, what the heck,
And I probably won't. I'm thinking about it. I just found out I've been writing to Brian Koberger for a month, and he got none of those letters. I just found out he will never get any of those letters. And I'm beginning to think Rex might not get his letter for the same reason. And the reason being is, first of all, just out of curiosity for people, for the first month, I was writing to an address that I found at Ada County Jail where he was being held, but it was an address that is only available for people to send books and periodicals to inmates. It's not for the correspondence. Correspondence has to be sent to Phoenix, Maryland, and rerouted back to Ada County in Boise, Idaho. So the first 4 letters I sent to him went to the wrong address, and after a month, they start getting returned to me one at a time. Wrong address, wrong address. So then I found out, oh shit, there's a different address for correspondence. So then I start sending them there, and a month later, I start getting those bounces. You don't have the inmate's number on it. And I'm like, I was told that if you have the inmate's exact name, like Brian Christopher Koberger, and there's not another one there, they're going to get it to him. And they're like, nope, you didn't include his inmate number where it bounced. So I'm going to get all those bounced. I finally did get his inmate number, and I sent one more letter to him now that I have his inmate number. But I realized on Rex Heuermann's letters, I also don't have his inmate number. So they might start bouncing those in a couple of weeks and say, yeah, you don't have his inmate number. We don't know who Rex Heuermann is. My ass. Yeah. But anyways, it is what it is.
That's how it was with Richard Allen, because remember, he was in a prison instead of a jail. So I'm trying to write to him, but he doesn't have an inmate number because he's not at the time wasn't convicted.
Mm-hmm.
So what number could I put on there? And I knew if I didn't follow the directions exactly, it would get kicked back. And then I wound up calling his attorneys, and they said to send the letter to them, and then he would get it to him.
Oh, wow.
Whether they did or didn't, I don't know, but that's what I did. I sent it to the Italian guy, the Italian attorney, and I didn't hear back. But it's just kind of a shot in the dark.
It is
interesting. I think it's interesting. But here we got Isles of Shoals. What's the story with the daughter's macabre artwork? So I know we were talking about this, Lee, so I guess why not bring it up now? But this story, it just the tentacles keep reaching out. So we got some. The family is certainly portrayed in a very positive light. As positive as you could make it, right?
Yeah.
Poor was it Elsa or Ilsa?
Asa.
Asa, yeah. Poor her, and you want to feel bad for the woman, if she's finding out her husband's been doing all these horrendous things. But then you think, like you said, I mean, a 1,300 square foot house, that's a pretty small space to not realize your husband.
Yeah, to what's going on in the house.
Going on,
Yeah. I posted a link. I don't know if you can put it up, Pete, but and show it. But this Newsweek article, that's what I did the long form video on today, and that article shows a lot of the artwork of Victoria. So I mean, it would be great if we had the visuals, we could literally talk about what kind of artwork she has. But if it's not something you can easily put on screen, that's fine. We'll just talk about it. But
yeah, I've got it on the screen. I'm trying to see if I could click on it, and then we could look at it.
You don't need the Chat GPT part. I don't know why that pulled up, because I just searched it on Google. Apparently, it was in my history from a Chat GPT source that I found. But anyways, that would take you there. Anyways, yeah.
Yeah, that's the link here. I'm trying to see. Trying to see if I could highlight it and then.
Cheryl's like, heaven forbid you see any of my artwork. I know about you, Cheryl. I'm sure your artwork is quite interesting. But doesn't make you a serial killer. Doesn't also not make you a serial killer, but doesn't make you a serial killer. So that's kind of the $1 million question that Pete and I were going to talk about tonight. And if we could show her artwork, we could describe it for you. But the question becomes is it kind of, is there some normalcy has society normalized certain types of macabre? Because like Pete's into macabre. I mean, look at he's wearing a Faces of Death shirt on here. Yeah. His studio's got Baphomet in it and all kinds of stuff. I mean, that's kind of your thing. It's your stick, and it doesn't make you a killer. But the same token, again, John Ray is making some issues about, does it say something about the psyche, especially with like one of the ones that was most disturbing. And again, a picture tells 1,000 words. But there was a picture where I think she reblogged it or whatever, and it was basically a really, really bloody mattress and clearly in a basement, blood all over the walls everywhere. And it's like, this is what lives in my head all the time or whatever. And it's like, these are the images that live in my head every single day. Or the ones that had all these like bone saw and scissors and spreaders and stuff like that says these are sex toys, and they're like cutting tools and scalpels and these are sex toys. Like, what?
Yeah, definitely really bizarre stuff to have a girl, a daughter doing at the house. And so you have to wonder, is this a something that she is drawn to because of her father? I mean it would make sense,
Yeah.
that's where she's getting this from. So I've got the I'm going to try to share this screen.
Oh, cool. It'd be great, yeah, because then we could peek into it a little bit.
So here,
yeah, that's the Newsweek article. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is interesting with the bodies hanging, because we did a podcast on somewhere in India. There was a family that all hung themselves like this in a courtyard. That's what made me think of this.
I wanted to point out another thing, because this is what John Ray pointed out. If you look, if you scroll up a little bit so we can see the bodies hanging a bit more, this first one in the foreground has a missing shoe. You'll see It's got a shoe and a foot, right? And John Ray made a comment in the Newsweek article that they quoted him that I thought was weird. He said that something to the effect of Rex Heuermann fetishized that particular thing, that one shoe off. And I'm like, I never heard anything about more than one victim having. I know one victim had a missing shoe, but but for you to call it a fetish, which in psychology terms, by the way, maybe people are curious what fetish actually means. But anyways, the point being is I could explain that if we wanted to. But the point being is, to say it's a fetish, I think you'd at first have to say it happened more than once. So did it happen more than once? And we just haven't heard that there was. And then, then the question is, was his daughter also obsessed about the one shoe off thing as some kind of weird fetish that they had? I don't know. I mean, it's one picture, picture and one victim. So can you make a fetish out of that? I don't know.
Yeah, and then here, you got the slicing of the hands and this dismemberment, and some of the stuff isn't too bad,
like right there when they started the article, I thought that's what they're talking about, macabre artwork, and I thought that's nothing. You're making something out of nothing. But you get deeper into that article,
same thing is,
and it gets effed up. Yeah,
come on. So some of the stuff isn't too terrible, but then you get into some other. She did this painting.
Yeah, and now is this her painting? Because it seemed like it was her painting. This was her own.
This is
painting.
hers. Yeah.
Yeah,
and shoe marks in this body, and then this weird creature with a sharp teeth,
bloody eyes, and sharp teeth, and I mean it's open for interpretation. Like the news article says those are bite marks on the body So you got a bite mark on the thigh and in the torso and maybe on the breast. Are those bite marks? I mean, I don't know. That's open for interpretation about what that is. But it is something macabre. It definitely looks like it's blood and it's open wounds on the body somehow. So
right.
And there's another image of decapitated heads. At first, I thought no big deal; it's just heads and bodies. But the bodies do have blood dripping down on the necks, so it's got some macabre element.
It's kind of strange. Now we're getting even stranger. Now this was not her image. I think this was just one that she liked, right?
Yeah, and I heard this image came from a movie. There was the first thing I thought, I don't know if you saw the movie, but there was a TV series called True Crime with Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey. Great show. But anyways, I believe it featured a killer that would ritualistically kill girls and use antlers and stuff to spike them on it. At first, I thought that was from that show. It's not. Somebody else said it was from a different movie, but it was something that she reposted or reblogged that she liked. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely getting a little crazier. This shows a basement wall with what looks to be blood on it.
True Detective, not True Crime. Thank you, Cheryl, for correcting me. True Detective. True Detective first season was phenomenal TV in my opinion. But
yeah, I heard, like you said, the first season's the one to watch.
Yeah.
So the question is, what basement wall is this? Is this one from the house? We don't know.
or just a photo that she liked. It seemed like she reblogged. And here's that one I was talking about. Inside of my brain looks like this.
Wow. Pretty harsh.
Right?
Pretty harsh.
And then you look at this picture, and this is the one. If you compare these two, you got a woman allegedly tied up on a bed, breast cut off or whatever. The guy's looking back at the viewer, if you will, looking at the camera with a mask on, and he's got a knife in his hand after torturing this person. It looks a lot like the bloody mattress in the picture above. It's just kind of creepy stuff, you know.
Yeah.
The article makes makes the suggestion that the hairstyle looks like Rex Heuermann's hairstyle. That's a bit of a stretch. I don't know if you can really say
I
that.
thought so too. Yeah. I thought so too. No, I'm not sure if this was one she did or just one that she liked.
Yeah, I think that's something she just liked of somebody else's. I think I've seen that before.
Yeah, I think you're right. This
one was yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just a strange image of a body cut in pieces and like reassembled, kind of just creepy, weird, you know?
Yeah. And that's not too much over the top. There's a few more that are, and I don't know how people feel about seeing all these macabre pictures. I mean, it did run on Newsweek, so that's something they thought that people could handle. So hopefully you guys can all handle it as well. This is one that really caught their attention. It's hard to see on this small image, but this individual has a whole bunch of little needles poked into him. In fact, you see the person stabbing another needle into their chest right there. Their throat seems to be slit. And there was a weird, I think this is the image where Victoria's comment on it was really disturbing. It was something to the effect of, is this supposed to be it was like something like, is this supposed to be sex or violence? And she was like there's something different. Sex and violence are the same thing or whatever. And she was kind of like, you know, how do you not understand that sex and violence are two sides of the same coin? I think is what
Exactly. Not sure what that's all about.
Yeah. Skin. I think it's, that was creepy. So that image contained, I'm going off my memory. There was a comment by Victoria about a person that had been skinned, and the skin peeled away with the neck so that you can lick the neck after it's been skinned. Just weird, freaky shit, you know?
Yeah, weird for sure.
And there's
the sex toy assembly here of all these methods of torture.
I mean, I know that's in my bedroom. What about you, Pete? I mean,
yeah, right over my bed, like Catherine Knight. Rib cutters, scalpels, tooth forceps, scissors, bone saws. What the hell? There's the same one I think we saw
from earlier. Yeah.
Some of these look like death metal album covers. So
that one has a cannibalistic thing. If you look down, there's a plate of body parts on a plate or whatever, and it looks like somebody's eating a meal of body parts and stuff.
Yeah.
Macabre statue of a woman holding skeletal babies with fang teeth and
But there was a press conference, and the attorney John Ray that you mentioned, he's holding these things up like full size too, and he's
I know
people freaked out.
That one right there, by the way, I wanted to comment on only because if you're new to the case, one of the things, look at this image here. This individual is suspended from the ceiling by chains, and one of the things they did when they tore down his house is they literally tore out the rafters in the basement because they believed that he was suspending victims from the ceiling in his basement.
Right. I remember hearing that too. So yeah, that's what makes these images. I mean, it's not just that they're macabre and gross to some people. To some people, it's artistic and whatever, right? But the fact that they have little things that could be indicative of her knowing details of what he was doing,
Let's talk about that before you move on to another picture. Let's talk about that a little bit. Did you ever, as a child, I know I did, I'll just open a confession. Did you ever, as a child, draw, and draw some kind of macabre stuff with blood and got the red pencils out and drew blood, or put red crayon and drew blood, and how is that much different? I mean, is it something that a phase some children go through to a lot of children go through, because it just, there's a time in your life when you're kind of like, ooh, I'm going to have this person's head cut off or whatever. Is that normal, or was that some sign of psychosis early on? And I don't know if you ever did that as a child, but I drew a few
Oh
macabre things in
yeah, I
my life.
mean, I always talk about Damien Eccles from the West Memphis Three and how they dragged him into that case because he liked to write dark and macabre poetry and so forth. And when I heard them reading excerpts from his journal, I was like, Shh, hold my beer. I mean, I was writing stuff that was so much worse. I mean, I went through my old like junior high journals I kept in English here a couple of years ago because I wanted to take a story or two from my past and not touch it, just put it in a short story collection. And I chose a story out of there called The Executioner, which is basically like Saw. And I thought, man, I was like way ahead of my time writing Saw like storylines.
So
You know,
I want to share a
junior
couple things about my personal life with that as well. Like I got a weird moment in school. By the way, I almost forgot. I was going to tell you about the creepiest, most evil dream I've ever had in my life. I don't know if we should do it on this show, but if you prompt me again later on, I might bring it back up. But
Okay.
I was a creative writer, and I really wanted to get into writing. And I remember one of the early questions that kind of got me some weird looks from my teacher. Well, it might have helped that I was at a Christian school at the time. But the point being is that I was interested in Stephen King. And I wrote a short story. I remember it to this day. I probably wrote this in the 8th grade, maybe, I think. It was called Green Things. And it started out very, very innocent, about a guy who goes to the forest and he loves the trees and the green of the trees and the green of the ferns. And then as I'm diving in deeper and deeper to his mental images, he's looking at the green moss growing on a dead body, his tongue that he found in the forest kind of thing. And it kind of ends with this, like, how, because it all is like, oh, peaceful and green things. And you get into the green moss that's growing on a dead person's tongue. And
Nice.
the teacher was like, what the fuck's wrong with you?
Right,
Like,
right.
that's Stephen King-ish. That was cool.
Yeah, I'm really surprised. I mean, it definitely was definitely the era that we grew up in. Because had I been doing that kind of stuff nowadays, they definitely would have put me in a room. So I'm lucky that I grew up when I grew up because nobody really questioned it. I mean, that kind of stuff, like you said, Stephen King, wildly popular in the 80s with teenagers and adults alike. Everybody knew those books, and then the movies would come out, and we were all enamored with it. And so we grew up with a steady diet of horror and that sort of literature and movies.
The most I got to speak about Steve. Did you read a lot of Stephen King? Did you happen to read a lot? Did you
Oh
read
yeah,
Needful Things?
yes, I love that one.
I don't remember how old I was when Needful Things came out, but I remember my dad read the same book that I read, and there was a scene in the book that stood out as, and I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to look at me like I'm a freak. It was one of the coolest scenes I've ever seen, and it was super macabre. It was, I don't remember exactly what the situation was, but two women got into a fight, one with a hatchet and one with a butcher knife, and basically carved each other up on the street in front of people. And it was super graphic. And I was like, that was crazy. Like, it was so over the top graphic. I was like, that's crazy. And it just stuck in my head. And my dad's like, what the hell are you reading? Like, why
Right,
is that a good thing? I'm like, I don't know. I thought it was a great
right,
scene. It's well written.
right. But then, like you pointed out, then you had the slasher,
Yeah.
movies, the Friday the 13th, the Nightmare on Elm Street, and all of those, and those bring in an element of humor
Yeah.
because these over the top characters, like let's say Freddy Krueger, he had the ability to throw in a little one liner there, here and there, and
The
people would
funny
laugh and cheer for him.
Yeah, but here's the funny thing. I remember, this is my memory of Friday the 13th, or not Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. When the first one came out, it was scary. I thought Nightmare on Elm Street was scary. Now maybe it was my age, but I thought it was scary. But by the time you got to the second and third movie, they started to make it funny. It actually started to become humorous. But I don't think the first one was intended to be funny. I think the first one was intended to scare you. But then they started getting to the point where audiences actually were laughing at the macabre, and they just kind of went with it and made it like they would make jokes. You'd kill somebody in a horrific way and you'd make a joke about it. Army of
Right.
Darkness, one of my favorite movies. Holy shit, somebody just put Army of Darkness. That shit is the primo. Evil Dead. Evil Dead was like one of my
Right.
favorite old Gothic films, and it was meant to be scary. That movie was a classic example of, by the way, we're off on a side tangent, of one that was supposed to be scary, but made people
Right.
laugh so much that it became kind of a cult thing. But
Yeah, I think that you know they stumbled upon the humor in horror, and then it became a genre in and of itself. You know, like you said, Army of Darkness and some of these movies where it's meant to be funny. You know, it's
but
kind of over the top. You know,
bringing it back to Victoria, the question becomes, right, is her artwork anything unusual, or is it indicative of a certain age? Now, she's not the same age as we are. That certainly seemed indicative of our age. We grew up with a lot of macabre stuff. Again, I feel like we grew up where we were right in the sweet wheelhouse of Friday the 13th and Halloween and Nightmare on Elm
right?
Street, and it kind of normalized slasher films. It was just a thing, right? But she's a little young to have gone through that at the same period we did. But did something like that potentially happen in her house, and evil and macabre and murder thing was just kind of normalized? It was just something that, oh, let's watch another, Friday the 13th movie, and it's just normalized. And is that therefore the explanation for the interesting artwork, or is there something else
Yeah.
she saw and it warped her mind and she became obsessed with darkness? And
I mean, my kids have been around. You know, they're out of the house now; they're adults. But when they were in the house, I mean, I was playing in a band. You know, and you know, metal is known for dark imagery and sometimes brutal subject matter and that sort of stuff. And so they were around all this stuff and the things that I watched, and I was careful, you know, of certain stuff to not watch while they were awake and that sort of thing. And both my kids grew up with a healthy, you know, outlook on, you know, I think my daughter's more into horror than my son is, but it's not like an obsession or anything like that. So I think it's important to understand that we're not just saying because she lived in that house that it was a guarantee
right, right.
that she was going to turn out to be like this, because the artwork in and of itself is one thing, but when you start dropping hints to cases or you know, things that tie into your dad's, you know, alleged, you know, acts with these women, I think that's a whole different story, and I
I
think
want
that's
I want
what,
to set. I want to segue into something, and I'm a little bit afraid to because it's going to take us off topic, but I just can't get out. I can't get it out of my head. You remember I don't know if you watched the TV show Dexter that ran for seasons and
oh yeah,
seasons, right?
yeah,
Right. I thought it was funny because two things that I'm going to tell you epitomize to me the difference of how Americans view death and macabre versus Europeans, for example. So first of all, I thought it was humorous to me, and I don't know everybody's going to go with me on this. Some parents were telling me that they let their kids watch Dexter. And I said, really, that seems pretty dark for your young kids to watch Dexter. And they said, oh, we make him close his eyes for the sex scenes. And I thought, that's fucking hilarious. Like, it's okay for your kid to watch somebody chop somebody up and put them in garbage bags and dump them at ocean, and that's completely okay. But if there's a sex scene, you'll make him close his eyes. Like, I thought, this is America. Like, this is how we think. And like, it's weird because even in European games, the video games that America has, they will censor violence out of the games in like the same game in Europe. They will censor the American violence in the video game out, but leave the nudity in. And we'll go the opposite direction. We'll ban the nudity in the same video game. I'm thinking specifically of a video game called Conan the Barbarian, which they released two versions, one in the U.S. and one in Europe. And in Europe, they took out all the blood and graphic gore from the game, and in the United States, they took out the sex scenes because you could go into a brothel and watch strippers and stuff like that. So they were like, well, in America, we don't do that nudity stuff. We blood and gore are perfectly okay, but
right,
nudity, fuck that, you know. So
right.
anyway, side tangent. I get on
Yeah,
rants sometimes.
but I think what both of us wanted to get across is that, you know, this case is far more reaching than we may know. You know, on the surface, it looks like it may be just him, but then you start wondering about the wife, and then you start wondering about the daughter, and then that leads to this artwork. And I was also curious if you knew, Lee, when was she doing this artwork? I mean, was
That's
this
the part I don't know. I didn't catch from the article when she started blogging it. I do believe it was scrubbed shortly after her father was identified as the Long Island serial killer, and John Ray again found out that one of the sites, it was Tumblr or whatever, she had forgotten to remove her stuff. But her and her mother both, Asa, also deleted all their social media stuff right after Rex was identified. So this would have been, what is it, 2022 when
I
they
believe
identified Rex
so.
Heuermann?
I
Anyway,
believe
so it
so.
was shortly after that that they scrubbed their accounts.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think, it's very possible that she could have picked up on this general vibe from her
Right.
dad. She was very close with her dad. He did all kinds of stuff with her. It's just so sad, you see, like BTK and Richard Kuklinski and some of these really horrific killers that have like a really good relationship with daughters. And
Mm-hmm.
meanwhile, at night, they're out there taking girls not much older than their own daughters and doing some unspeakable things to them. And it's really, really insidious. I mean, it really is.
And for me, this Gilgo case and the question about whether or not Asa really did know what was going on, and whether or not it's possible Victoria's hair, for example, is at a crime scene, not because it was accidentally put there, but because she was there. Uh, uh, if that's the case, it has shades of the Koberger thing for me, which is,
It does.
are we okay with letting one person go down for it if the whole family was involved in it? Are you okay letting her go live the rest of her life as a normal person if she was a serial killer and helping her dad kill people? Now, again, I want to be super, super careful. I am not saying Asa or Victoria. I'm not even saying Rex Heuermann did, because again, he has the presumption of innocence until proven guilty in a court of law,
Right.
and that's part of my shtick, right? But the point being is that, is it good enough? Because this is where I think law enforcement gets blinders, and they want to put cold cases to bed. And if they can lump a whole bunch of dead bodies and say, oh, he's a serial killer, and we're just going to say they're all his victims, put a seal on it, wrap it up, now we just closed a bunch of cold cases. Is there an incentive of their part to not go too deep down the woods to see whether they really were all his murders, or whether more than one person did it, or maybe somebody helped them? Is it just good enough to get somebody to go down for it so they can close cases and everybody can feel good at the end of the day?
Yeah, I mean, Henry Lee Lucas would be a great example of that. Those cops were from all over the country eager to close these cold cases, even though they knew there was no way this guy could have covered that kind of ground in such a short time. That's why they wound up calling him the confessions killer, because he was just making up stories of where he was and stuff, because they were giving him Pall Mall cigarettes and strawberry milkshakes. That's all he wanted
Right.
was Pall Mall cigarettes and strawberry milkshakes. But
And
yeah,
oh, and
I
I
mean,
think
these
I
guys
think they
are doing
mentioned,
stuff.
we talked about the toy box killer, and I think he mentioned in that article, or somebody mentioned recently, that the toy box killer actually had his daughter bring women to
Yeah,
the house for him
Jamie.
to kill. Yeah.
Yeah, his daughter. He lived in the mobile home with the daughter, and she would go out to these bars and find girls and then bring them home, and then he would attack them. And yeah, so she was an assistant in the whole thing. When it went down, she got arrested and tried, and I'm not sure how much time she got, but she got quite a bit. I think her boyfriend or somebody that was associated with them got less time, and of course he got the bulk of the time. But then, of the most awful endings to a story like that, with this complete piece of shit, David Parker Ray, he gets to prison on the first day when they bus him over there, and while he's waiting for them to get his cell ready, he falls down dead of a heart attack and drops dead right there. I mean,
Miss John E. Knapp in your comment said they'd never heard of the toy box killer. I will warn you right now: if you dig too deep, that story is the stuff of nightmares. If you think about the psychology of what happened to the victims, it's the stuff of nightmares. It's bad shit. It's bad.
yeah, if you're interested, tread lightly. David Parker Ray, the toy box killer, in Elephant Butte, New Mexico. But he was a horrible human being, and he would make these tapes, and the woman would wake up chained to a wall, and he would play the tapes, and it was really gruesome and you
It would
could hear
describe
them.
all the things that's going to happen to them. This is
Yeah,
what's going to happen to you over the next few weeks, and you're going to be
right.
begging for death, and it's not going to
Bring
come. We're
all
just going
my
to keep
friends
torturing
over
you.
here to
Yep, we're going to all
do all
use
these
you, and
horrible things. My dogs will do things
yep,
to you, like
yep.
really, really bad. It's so bad.
Telling them to mentally prepare for it because this is just the way it's going to. You better
Yeah,
accept it because this is just
accept
what's
it.
going to happen, and it's
Accept it.
yeah,
Exactly. And he had a girlfriend too that wound up. That's how that one girl escaped. Was she got out of her shackles when the girlfriend went over there to feed her or do something? She broke free. David Parker Ray had some type of girlfriend, I think, at the time.
yeah, yeah.
But but yeah, that was a crazy one, and here is another case of just absolute debauchery. I
and
mean,
and
just
again,
the worst.
to go back what we're saying, that he had his daughter helping him bring victims to the house. She probably knew what those victims were being brought for. So
Yes,
is it, if it's been done once before, could the family have been involved with Rex
sure.
Heuermann and bringing him victims or helping him cover up victims or whatever, and maybe even being involved in torturing victims? Who knows?
Plenty of women have been the assistants, like Rosemary West, Fred and Rosemary West from the UK. The Moors murderers, the woman would make the person feel at ease so that the man wasn't intimidating, and then once their guard was down, the man would step in and abduct them and do all this stuff. So this is far from the first time. If this is the case, we don't know that, but we're
Right,
just saying that this has happened before. So
right.
it's certainly within the realm of possibility.
Yeah. And I think it's important to reiterate what you just said, which is that despite how much we're going down the questioning, it's just questioning. We don't know that the family was involved. We don't even know that Rex Heuermann really is the killer. He's the alleged killer. So we need to
Right.
be careful and make sure that you understand these are not we're not making allegations. Don't go out there and say, I just heard devil's advocates say that the daughter was one of the killers. That's not what I said. What I said
Right.
was, is it possible? When you look at this, can you see a scenario in which it's possible? It's a question. And now
Right.
we need to go see if the evidence fits that question or not. So,
Exactly. Exactly. And so, you have to wonder about her potential involvement or the mom, and I just thought it was so interesting though with the hairs on the duct tape
yeah,
and comparing them to the skin cells on the knife sheath, and you think, man, this is the same type of story here in some ways. Interesting how history repeats itself. I always say that with true crime. That's why I think, I've been a student of true crime for a long time, because I find it interesting when I'm studying a case and something happens and I'm like, oh, that's interesting because I remember when, blah 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 did that,
yeah,
and why did blah 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 do that? Well, he had an issue with his mom, so who knows? Maybe this person has an issue with their mom. It gives you kind of a starting point, when you can reference things that have happened before,
yeah,
just like a baseball team playing an opponent who's got a weak, right fielder, so they're going to be trying to hit
yeah,
everything they can to right field and expose that weakness. It's the same type of thing.
yeah,
It's human nature, but I think, people find this case really fascinating because certainly we don't know if Rex is on, going to go down for all 11 murders, but those 11 are just the ones they found in the beach. This is like a scraggly, like underbrush area, so it's certainly not something you'd be walking around in.
yeah,
You'd have to want to be in there looking for stuff because you'd probably get all cut up and everything else going through there. But there's just like an area in New Jersey called the Pine Barrens with
yeah,
just sandy, crappy soil with all these scrub pine trees, and the mafia was known for dumping bodies there because it was out of the way, and it was one of those places where you're not going to have somebody just walking through the woods stumble upon it because it's such a godforsaken place. And there was even one mafia hitman that would bury them in Staten Island in some like a forest preserve, so that they wouldn't dig up the soil because it was a forest preserve and it was legally protected. So it was like the perfect place to bury bodies in a place where they can't dig it up. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
people get creative with this. You know,
Did we scare everybody away tonight? You think this was a pretty dark? This was a pretty dark show tonight, Pete. We were
it
pretty
was,
dark
yeah.
tonight.
It is a dark show, and I know that I get a lot of funny looks from people that don't like the stuff that I write. But the thing is, a lot of the stuff that I write is based in reality. Just like all these stories we've brought up, Freddy Krueger, Friday the 13th, these were all characters created from real life. Um,
I
like
remember.
Ed Gein, and his weirdness out at the farm there in Wisconsin, and that became the Harold Bates character in Psycho. These characters come from real life, so if you're going to be scared of fiction, you really would want to be more scared of the true stuff, because that's the person that might be around the corner. So
My
to me, that's much worse than
my
the
my
horror.
dark friend Cheryl wants me to share my dream, but I was going to ask you, and I might share the dream, but I was going to ask you, do you remember there was a Stephen King? You said something that triggered me, the whole like the writing process and stuff like that. Do you remember? I think Stephen King one time just had, it was like certain people's brains work this right. He was asking himself the question: if you were stuck on a deserted island and you had no food, how long could you live eating yourself? Like, could you cut off parts of your body and eat yourself? And how long, what would be the breaking point at which the body couldn't lose another limb and you survive
Oh
on
wow,
eating yourself? I can't remember.
that's
It's like,
messed up.
it takes a certain kind of brain to think those questions through and then
Yeah,
write a
that's
book
pretty
and make it,
intense.
because then you would look at forensics and you'd be, okay, how can I write this book and how would it take place? And how, like, geez, like it takes a different kind of brain to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so why don't you share with us your dream, Lee? We got
I,
about a half hour left, so we
I
got about
I
a half
feel
hour left.
I feel bad only because in order to not make it horrendous, I'll have to tone it down a little bit, but it would still be horrendous. So the dream was this. It was a dream that I had, and it was so vivid. I remember kind of shaken after the dream, and I told a friend of mine, and a friend of mine who is not squeamish said to himself, to me, he said, "God damn, now that's going to give me nightmares." And what it was is, for some reason, I had this dream, and all I remember from it, I was in a basement of some house. It was all shelled out. I was in a basement, and somebody was tied up, suspension from the rafters, kind of thing. And this guy, who I was terrified of in the dream, and I was in the corner, and I wasn't shackled, and I wasn't chained up. And he was carving up this person with razor blades, and so they were naked, suspended from the rafters, and he was using a razor blade. He would kind of do like figure S's on their bodies and cutting S's through their skin. But it was creepier than that, because what he had was, I realized, is he kept throwing the razor blade down and getting another razor blade out of a box of razor blades. And so I became curious to look at the razor blades. And the razor blades were, it's so weird how the mind fucking got this detailed on it. The razor blades were two razor blades sandwiched together with about a millimeter between. And what was happening is, as he would cut the person, he would fill up with flesh and it would get all gunked up and he couldn't cut anymore with it. So he'd throw the razor blade away, and he'd pick up another razor blade and cut until it got full of flesh, and then he'd throw the razor blade set away. Well, I remember that freaked my ass out, right? And then there's this box of razor blades right beside me that I notice, and I look at the box, and I open up this box, because it's all meticulous and it's all a whole bunch of razor blades, and I pick out one of those dual sandwiched razor blades, and I realized that it had kind of like a, how like when you engrave something on metal, it's got that holographic kind of look, and you kind of get the light to kind of shine out so you can see the engraving. I noticed that it had somebody's address on it. And I was terrified, and I looked at the killer, and I'm like, "What's this?" And he says, "What do you mean?" I said, "What's this address?" And he goes, "You can see the address?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, then that box is for you. And I realized that he meant that I was going to have to go find the people that lived at those addresses and carve them up, because that box was for me, because only people who can see the address know who to kill. And I woke up just shaking. Fucking freakiest dream I've ever had. It still kind of gives me chills when I rethink about it, but it was fucking very vivid and very detailed. And I was like, where the hell did that come from the brain? There
Well,
it is.
I had a similar thing. I have a condition with my feet. Of course, now I have one less foot because of this, but a condition with my bones breaking in my feet and very painful. And I had it in my right foot, and for a few years, I wear a brace on my right foot. And then it started acting up in my left foot. So I was like, oh my God, like the thought of having two braces on, one on each foot and how clumsy that would be. Little did I know I'd end up losing the leg entirely. But I started having dreams of this little old man creeping into my room. I called him the creep. I wrote a short story about it called The Creep.
Oh
And the
wow.
creep would come into my room at night and gnaw on my foot
Wow.
till it was like just raw flesh, and then I'd wake up freaking out. And I was so scared that the same condition was going to mess me up in that foot. And it ended up, like I said, down the road, I had to have it amputated. But the short story, The Creep, was indefinitely based on a creepy dream that I had that involved a real thing, which was the fear of losing my foot. And he quite figuratively ate the foot piece by piece, night after night, just to torment me. Yeah, it was pretty horrible. But I could walk away from that and not be disturbed. Now, some people hearing that might be like, "How the hell do you sleep at night with all those ideas in your mind?" I just shut it off. To me, it's a gift to be creative, albeit dark. People like that kind of stuff. Now, you may not, but that doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that it's not your cup of tea. Just
Yeah.
like we with the heavy metal stuff and the thing horns up. Some people don't like that. Well, that's fine. You don't have to like it. But
Ironically, ironically, and this isn't, I don't mean this to be a slight to people with religious beliefs, but ironically, I had a lot of nightmares when I was a child, but they were all around religious themes, demons and stuff like that tormenting me. And when I later in life grew out of the church and went my separate ways, all my nightmares went away. And I don't think I have nightmares anymore. I sometimes will have a scary dream, like once every year, maybe, where I actually feel a little bit of terror. But I used to have regular kind of fears as a child, and it was mostly around religious themes, kind of exorcist type stuff.
yeah, that's why I thought it was funny. You said your favorite movie was The Exorcist because that's mine too.
My scariest
Yeah,
movie for a horror film is
love the
Exorcist
book
by
too.
far.
The book was amazing,
Yeah.
but yeah, the movie was fantastic. Um, yeah, I think it's a normal thing, and I think this whole idea of Rex's family and how it could have affected the daughter, but not the son. The son wasn't into that kind of stuff.
We don't hear anything about the son potentially being involved. And it's funny because people have asked, well, what about the son? And I'm like, not come to think about it, nobody ever talks about the son. I don't know.
Yeah, they
you
don't.
know
They
but
don't,
yeah.
and it's not his. It's a
Yeah.
by marriage, her son by marriage, but or his son by marriage. So yeah, it's an interesting idea to bat around, but I think this case has got a lot of potential for an interesting one as we start picking apart the
Yeah,
investigation.
somebody said there's a son. Yes, he has a son, also in his 20s, right? Maybe
Yeah.
same basic age as the sister. Yeah.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think he's got. Someone says he looks weird. I think he's got a little bit of some kind of physical handicap or mental handicap. I don't know that for
I
sure, but he
believe
does.
you're right.
He kind of
There's
presents
something
a
going
little.
on there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely something going on. But you don't hear much from him. But I think that this case, the possibilities really are almost endless, especially when you know that he was in other
Autism.
places. He was out in Reno. He was in, other places where are they going to start looking for missing people out there and maybe
Yeah,
connect him to multiple things, like
I know they specifically
Israel
mentioned
Keys.
Atlantic City, and Reno. They think that he may have had victims there.
Yeah, I mean Israel Key is, one of the most interesting serial killers because he would scout out victims all over the country and he would bury what he called a kill kit near the scene. So he would take a bus or a train or however he got there and he would get off, and he wouldn't have any weapons or anything on him because everything he needed was in a kit that was already there. And then he would dig up the kit and use it and then put it back in the ground. So he stayed
Another
on the run for quite a while. Very, very smart guy, very, very shrewd, but he eventually offs himself in his cell. But
another thing that's interesting about the Rex Heuermann thing is this thought, which is that some people would think that if he really has been killing women for 30 years, that's because that again, there's reason to believe he's been doing this for a very long time. But if he has, the question you have to ask yourself at the end of the day is he super smart or not? Or super lucky, or are people super lazy? Because he didn't really hide the bodies. He just dumped them. He just dumped them in pretty much public places. Didn't take a lot of time to hide the evidence. So is that really smart, or is he lucky, or do law enforcement not look as hard as they should? Because it doesn't seem like he's particularly smart. If whoever the killer is, again, let me reiterate: Rex Heuermann has the presumption of innocence until proven guilty in a court of law. But if they're his or whoever's doing it, they're not even taking much steps to hide them. They're just dumping bodies. So how is that not how you don't catch that person? You know.
I mean, we know he likes petite girls. He likes dark-haired girls. He's got his thing, you know. He it seems to pick on a certain type of victim, but that's not uncommon. I mean, Bundy was the same way with the girls with the parted hair in the middle of the day. You know that they all looked kind of the same, you know, and those are the girls he went for, the long hair.
So this comment. Did Heuermann have a brother? Someone says, "What about his brother?" I didn't even know Heuermann had a brother.
He has a brother in like South Carolina or something, and
he bought a house in South Carolina. That's right. I do. That's funny. I do know he had a brother, because the story was Rex Heuermann had bought a house in South Carolina, on a small house on about 5 acres, and was going to retire there. And then he signed the house over to his wife after the divorce. She divorced him right after his arrest. And sorry, this is all extreme of consciousness. And I remember she then sold the house for $1 to his brother. So I do remember now that he had a brother. It's funny, it didn't dawn on me until I realized I did know he had a brother, but I don't know.
And that Chevy Avalanche was down there, I think, at the brother's
in South Carolina. Yes.
That's where they ended up finding it. So, yeah, he's got ties to some different areas. So there'll be potentially more victims popping up. And I've got this email I got to me sent from just a girl. So I want to thank her for sending this to me. But it says here, in early 2025, the discovery of multiple bodies across Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island has sparked fears of a potential serial killer in New England. At least 13 bodies have been found since March, with some remains discovered in remote or wooded areas. So who knows? I mean, could any of those be tied to him? You know.
Well, and the first thing I thought when it said that Rex Heuermann had bought a property on 5 acres is, are there bodies on that 5 acres of land?
Right. Is that
right? Are they going to go dig up those 5 acres of land later on? We'll find hundreds of bodies buried out in some place in South Carolina.
Yeah, it's totally possible. You know, I mean, Gacy started running out of room under his crawl space. That's when he started dumping them in the Chicago River, or the Des Plaines River, one of the two. And you know, these guys need to find somewhere to put them, and so that's what that's oftentimes how they end up getting caught, is they got nowhere to put them. They got so many so many different bodies, they just run out of space. But that remote location in South Carolina could totally be, you know, a dump.
And how much different is a remote location in South Carolina from remote Gilgo Beach, where there's just brush and shrubbery around and you can just dump bodies? I mean, it might not even, I don't know. I'm just asking questions. It's just, you know, did he spend time at that place already, or did he buy it for a future day when he planned to retire there and just keep killing and dumping bodies on his property? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he spent much time there. I don't know how close he is with the brother.
And again, that's if he's the killer. I mean, I hate saying, was he planning on dumping bodies? Well, we don't even know if he is the killer, but you know, chances are good, to be fair, but right. He does have the presumption of innocence, still proven guilty.
Yeah, I think I think it's interesting though. A pizza crust is how they wound up getting them on some DNA. Lee,
right?
how did that go down?
Yeah, they had a suspicion it was him. They were tailing him. They needed to try to get some kind of DNA that they could run a sample on, and they didn't. They have to be able to legally get it. So without having a search warrant, they literally had him to have to drop some trash. And they got lucky one day, and he came out with a pizza box, and he dropped the pizza box right in front of agents, and they swooped in on the trash and picked the pizza box up, and Bob's your uncle, as they say.
Yeah, yeah, pretty slick. He comes out of his office and throws it right in the garbage can on the street.
They did a similar thing to Victoria. Victoria, I think, was on I think she was on a public bus drinking a coffee, and they swooped in and they grabbed her coffee and did a DNA sample off of her coffee cup, I think.
Right, right. Yeah, so it's an interesting case, that's for sure. But I think I'm watching here. Somebody's commenting on that I-95 killer, 80s women's
Oh
bodies.
yeah, I said 195. It was probably I-95.
I-95, yeah, that's the highway that runs from Florida up to the east, up along the East Coast.
Yeah.
All young near Fall River, Massachusetts. So yeah, it's been a long time since I've been back home, but I'm familiar with the area to an extent. But I've been in the Midwest now for a long time, so I'm all Midwesternized. My voice and everything. I don't have much of an accent. At least I don't think I do. But when I first moved here, I had a stronger accent, and I had really long hair back in the day. I've posted pictures before on the YouTube channel of me with hair like down to
When you
half,
were in the metal band.
halfway down my back. Yeah, it's pretty wild. Different time, that's for sure. Well, we got about 10, 15 minutes left. If anybody wants to ask any questions or throw out any ideas, we had Joanne Murdoch, a $2 super sticker. Thank you, Joanne. I'm not sure if that's you or me, but either way, we appreciate that very much. Always nice to get those.
Yeah, like I said, this has been the darkest show that I have been on since I
Yeah.
started doing YouTube. So hopefully everybody's okay with that. I mean, maybe we should have had a disclaimer at the beginning. Although I don't know, you probably have had some dark. I know you've had some dark shows in the past. For me,
Oh,
this
yeah.
is
I
probably as
mean,
dark as I've gone on a show.
we've done some of the worst on the podcast. Most of those, though, aren't video. Most of those are just audio. But Pedro Lopez, some of these really bad child killers, like he's down in South America. Really atrocious stuff. You know, Prison breakouts stories are fun, and we do cases from all over the world and try to get people on the show that are from those parts of the world to talk about it. Because I saw in your chat today, somebody was talking about Austin, Texas, a serial killer
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
And I chimed in with Ladybird Lake, which is where they keep finding the bodies. Ladybird Lake is a lake that separates downtown Austin, and they keep finding bodies in this lake, and the cops keep saying it's not a serial killer, when in reality, it's pretty repetitive. So it's like, why are all these people ending up in this lake? And so a lot of people feel it is a serial killer, but I think they're up to like 18 or 19 victims so far in the last 5 or 6 years, and these are mostly men, and they're accomplished men. They're men that are business owners, educated, not vagrants, not people just off the street. These are people you would expect that wouldn't fall for something like this, but some people suspect they were drugged and then dumped in the river.
Yeah,
Some of them
yeah,
were robbed of their belongings, and some were not. So
yeah,
it's weird, but I think that may be what that one viewer of yours was talking about
yeah.
was him.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Sounds like it would be a very strong possibility for sure.
Yeah, Ladybird Lake, kind of a funny name for a podcast about a guy like that, but that's the name of the lake. It's Johnson, President Johnson's wife was a big advocate of the nature trails around that area, and she was responsible for getting a bunch of government funding to beautify the area and make the walking paths clear. And so they wound up changing the name of the lake in her memory. So that's how that got the name. So you learn something every day. You come to Murder Metal Mayhem and Devil's Advocate, Devil's Mayhem as we call it, and you learn some cool facts. You learn
Yeah.
some things.
And hopefully, I mean, one of the things that's my shtick on my channel is I like to use the high profile cases to educate people on various aspects, how mainstream media handles things, how mainstream media shapes public opinion, how law enforcement oversteps bounds, whether or not the constitutional and the civil rights issues, is it okay for them to violate United States citizens' civil liberties and civil rights to catch the bad guy because the ends justify the means? These are my things. I use these as teaching moments to highlight the system, if you will.
Yeah, that's a good point. I see this comment over here. Miss Ms. Tree is asking, I can't stop watching his videos. What's that all about? He throws up the horns. So I started doing these intros in front of my videos, and one of them was a call to 911, and the guy is all distraught because he's at his house and he can't stop watching Murder Metal Mayhem, and he says the host is this big bald guy that keeps throwing up the horns, and he didn't know what was going on. And so then this poor guy is going to a sandwich shop, and he's going to order a sandwich, and he hears the voice and he recognizes the girl from the 911. And so that's the reference there is from an intro before that one. What I plan on doing is doing a playlist of all the intros so that you guys can hear the different ones, because I've been doing some pretty funny stuff getting people involved. I know Lee said he wanted to do one with me, which would be a lot of fun. We do fake commercials on Murder Metal Mayhem. We do and they're in poor taste, like Ted Bundy escort service, uh, uh, John Wayne Gacy child care, that kind of stuff. And we make them serious, like with testimonials and like music and stuff. And we put out a CD called what's it called? I got one here. Where is it? Of course, when you need it, can't find it. I came across a cop. Oh, here it is. I got to hold it up while I'm talking about it, just so you can see that I'm not full of crap. We came up with a CD of these. We call it hysterical, distasteful, and stupid, and they're 48 funny commercials. We even got some outtakes on here. But one of the hosts of the podcast, Joey, he did the cover, and so I'm going to give one of these away to somebody here tonight.
Nice.
We're ending this up, so why don't we do this? Got to be U.S. though, because I get ate up with the postage. So let's do this. Let me think of a good question for you. What is let's see, I'll give you a minute to answer, and then what I'll do is I'll get all the right answers, and I'll use a random number generator to pick the winner.
Nice.
So what's the name of the villain in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise? The name of the villain, the killer in A Nightmare on Elm Street. That's an easy one.
It's a softball. That's a softball.
We're throwing the softballs all day long, but you got a minute to answer if you want this CD, and I'll send it to you. We got one right answer there already, I see.
Yep.
So let's go. We see if we get a few. And I know
I'm throwing my ring. I'm putting my hat in the ring because I want a CD.
Yeah, I know people. Don't use don't listen to CDs as much. Now, if you're interested and you don't win, we have a digital download of this on murdermetalmayhem.com. If you go to the store, you can digitally download it, and it's pretty cheap. It's only a couple bucks. It might be
Nice.
$6.66, if I'm not mistaken.
That's
Yeah, of
that's a
course.
little disturbing, sir.
Of course, of course. But I know somebody said I don't even have a way to play a CD anymore. The only place
I
I can
know.
play a CD is in my car. I still have a CD player in my car, but that's it. So I get you. I get you. So we got somebody here saying they're interested in your live tomorrow.
Yes,
Lee.
Cloud. Thank you so much. I'm super excited. In fact, I'm in communication real quick. I'm in communication with Ali Benevento. I'm going to try to get her on the show. However, Ali Benevento just had a documentary drop, I found out, and she's super busy with press stuff. So she might not be able to do that. But I'm going to try to get her on for that show if I can. Anyways, go on with your giveaway because that's exciting. I love that idea.
Yeah, so here we go. We're down to the final few seconds. See, Jen says she loves my humor. Thank you, Jen. I appreciate that. Frederick Charles Krueger. Wow.
Charles did they ever have a middle name?
I
That
don't
person
know.
should
That's
win
news
just
to
for the
me.
freaking extra bonus word. Hold
Yeah,
on. I
really.
gotta fact check that shit. Hold on.
You gonna check it out?
Yes, I am. Give me a
All right.
second. That person wins a bonus. I'm thinking like I'll give them a bonus just for being on the spot here.
Mrs. Tree says she can't play a CD. Yeah, I get it. So if you can't play the CD, then let somebody win it that can. Or you could digitally download it, Mrs. Tree, and go on the and buy it that way, and then you could listen to it digitally. Is he
Woon
right?
woon. Well, yeah, he's right. Freddy Krueger's middle name is not officially mentioned. However, some fan theories on unofficial sources have said that Frederick Charles Krueger is the confirmed official name in the films. Wes Craven is the official New Line Cinema material where that came from. So it didn't even make it into the films, but apparently Wes Craven may have verified that Frederick Charles Krueger was the full name of Freddy Krueger.
I'm impressed, Woon Woon. So you
That shit's
win.
badass.
You win the CD. All right. So thank you for playing. And what you need to do though to get your prize is email me at pete@murdermetalmayhem.com and with your snail mail, and I'll drop this in the mail. I got some mail going out here in the next couple of days, so this will get right out to you. But I have more of these, and what I'll do is I'll give more of these away if people like them. I've also got cases of low 12 CDs. If anybody's interested in any of those, maybe I'll give some of those away too.
Hilarious.
If anybody likes some metal there, but there you go. Very cool. Well, does anybody else want to weigh in there? Looks like we had a good one. We knew we were going to get a small crowd, but I think the people here seemed engaged and genuinely interested in this case. I think there's a lot here. And
I'm going to get some flack about it tomorrow. I'm going to be like, what the hell went have Devil's Advocates? What the hell did you do on that show? What did you do? And what's with your dream? I can't handle you anymore.
Yeah, exactly. You crazy bastard. Yeah. But all right, guys. Well, thank you very much for joining us. Please don't forget to like, comment below if you're watching on the replay. If you're not a subscriber, please do that, and that will help. That will help it. Get out there to more people. More people get turned on to it. Definitely a dark show, but when you're doing a video about a guy that dumped 11 bodies in the brambles of a beach in New York, I think it's worthy of a dark episode because something created that.
Yeah.
Something, whether it was Rex or somebody else, some darkness. But what our point tonight was, the mere presence of somebody being in a home where somebody's super into the macabre does not necessarily make them out to be one of the group. But in certain instances, if somebody's predisposed to that kind of nudge may turn them into
However,
It'll be really
if
dark.
the old stereotype is correct, if they have macabre stuff in their house and there happens to be a lot of missing animals in the neighborhood, you probably do have something.
There you go. There you go. All right, Lee. Well, good to see you, my friend, and good
Thank
luck
you
with
so
your
much.
channel, which is doing really well.
Thank you so
Guys,
much.
one more time, don't forget to go to Lee's channel and you know follow him, join his membership, get involved with these content creators that are doing the best that we can and trying to diversify it. I know Idaho 4 has got the big ticket item and all the likes and the views, but there's got to be other cases out there, and there are some good ones that we're going to be covering. So you'll
Yeah,
see
thank you
more.
guys. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you again, Steve. Or Steve, Pete. Thank you, and I can't wait to do it. Where the hell does Steve come from? I've
I
never
don't
called
know.
you Steve.
I don't
I think I
know.
saw something on my phone that said Steve, so I know your damn name. Anyways, thank you so much. I can't wait to do it again.
Same here, my friend.